Today it is Wednesday, December 17th, 2014. It's a live broadcast. I'm Doug Hagman in studio with my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher, co-host Joe Hagman. Together we are the Hagman and the Hagman Report. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening tonight. We do appreciate your fellowship in this radio endeavor. I want to say hello to all the new listeners. For those new listeners checking in with us, we do broadcast live every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. We are simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the Hagman and the HagmanReport.com. Now, alternatively, our home base on the internet is Hagman and Hagman.com. That's Hagman and Hagman.com. Two N's, spell out the word and, there you go. We still have a lot, and I mean a lot, of data at HomelandSecurityUS.com, a lot of background information there. You can check into the various articles from the DHS Insider to the Road to World War III, in which we are far down tonight. And that's really going to be the topic of our show. The focus of our show tonight is where we're at with the current state of geopolitical and economic affairs. They're intertwined so much that, and we're going to be talking about Russia tonight, the ruble, what's going on there with the ruble, also with the asymmetrical warfare with the dollar, and just how far down the path we are to World War III. That's going to be the main focus of tonight's program, because Joe and I were talking earlier. Joe spent the majority of the day in the studio, and we were doing a lot of work, getting a lot of things done here in preparation for the show. But I've got to tell you, we are facing a very perilous immediate future. With that, I want to just briefly mention that tonight's broadcast is sponsored by Katie's Essential Oils. Folks, go to HagmanandHagman.com. On the right-hand side, all the way down there, under Essential Oils, is the banner for Katie's Essential Oils. Got to tell you, you'll notice the difference physically, mentally, everything. So Katie's Essential Oils, as well as HonestToGoodnessToffee.com. HonestToGoodnessToffee.com. Folks, if you have not ordered toffee for your Christmas Day gatherings, the cutoff date, and this is a hard cutoff date. I mean, I'll tell you, you've got to order by noon Pacific time tomorrow. Rumor has it, I have not seen photographic documentation of this, however, rumor has it that the kitchens are going full steam, and it's just a great product. If you want something elegant for your Christmas Day table or your New Year's table, which we'll get more into that later, definitely visit HonestToGoodnessToffee.com. With that, folks, we cut through the muck and mire of the mainstream media. I have not seen much in the mainstream media about the issues at hand, about the issues we're going to be talking about tonight, but they're very serious, and it's time to get serious about what's taking place. A little housekeeping before Joe, welcome. Come on, jump on in, and why don't you go over the schedule that we've got upcoming here, if you will.
We have a schedule? No. Yeah, we do have a...
Sometimes I wonder.
We have a great lineup for the rest of the week and into next week. We have tomorrow Ted Breuer coming on for hours number 2 and 3. You guys remember him. He is the gentleman who talked about the health, and he has his 3 hours of...
He's one of my favorite people.
He talked about health, supplements, nutrition,
chemtrails, everything.
Yeah. I mean, his specialty is health and fitness and nutrition, but he is a very intelligent gentleman, and we're going to have a great 2-hour discussion among not only about health but among other issues that are going on in our world with
by
Ted
the way,
Broer tomorrow.
Yeah, Ted Broer, and if you heard the last episode, you've got to cycle it down from a 78 RPM to a 33 and a third RPM. Now, most of that joke will be lost on anyone that's under, I'll say 50.
I was just going to say, I fit into the lost category.
Yeah, I'm talking about records. You remember the old 78s, and then you had 45s, or the albums, which ran a 33 and a third, and then 45s. But yeah, you've got to slow it down.
What's the size of records?
No, it's a speed. It's revolutions per minute. It's again one of those jokes that don't land. Okay.
And Friday, real blessing. Greg Evenson will be on with Steve Quayle, and they're going to come on Friday. And I'm not sure what the subject matter is going to be on Friday. But
I didn't share that with you?
No.
Oh, okay. We're going to be talking about current events, especially the Russia issue, the economy, all of this. The show title is pretty it's one of it certainly will make you think twice. It's we're actually on the gallows trapdoor, and we either have to step off of the gallows trapdoor or suffer the consequences. And we're going to hopefully give you some, not only outline the various problems that updated the problems, especially with Steve and Greg, but also giving you some practical solutions as well. By the way, folks, if you want to, I just want to mention this, and then I'm going to turn it back to you. Steve Quayle's a little under the weather, and I talked to him this morning. I talk to Steve probably every day, at least once a day, and he just sounded really bad. He's got a really bad head cold like Joe. And, so if you just want to drop him a note just saying you're praying for him, just say a prayer for Steve Quayle. And, of course, Greg is still battling his physical ailments, but Steve is, just tell him how much tell him you're praying for him. And you heard me mention that he's under the weather a tad, and that'd be great. So go ahead, Joe.
Then the following Monday next week, starting out Christmas week, we have Josh Peck. He is the author of Quantum Creation. We met in Columbus, Ohio. He's going to be coming back on to do, I believe this is part one of a two-part show we will be doing on his first book, Disclosure, which is a book about the ancient world before the flood, the ancients, the fallen, the days of Noah, and how we are seeing a repeat and how we are seeing things come alive again, how we're seeing prophecy being fulfilled. It's going to be a great show. We'll have the information and show descriptions up for you on the Hagman and Hagman Report before the show each day for you to read. But and we're talking with a few other people. I talked to Greg Jackson. We have to get him scheduled. And Pastor Langford, somebody that Dad, we talked to yesterday, but I forgot to ask him if he could come on and wanted to do a show here in the near future because we're getting a lot of requests for him. So those are some of the people that we have lined up and some of the people that we are looking. Also, for two listeners that sent requests, Irving Baxter, to get him on as a guest. I'm looking for his contact info, and we'll be sending out a request once I receive or find the contact info. So I just want to thank you guys. But with that, we can get into
let's remind everybody, too, that we're not going to be – there's only 2 days in the entire year. Out of 365 days, we broadcast 363 days.
No.
Except when we don't, right?
On the weekends, we don't.
Or I'm sorry. But this coming or Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve are the 2 days that we do spend with our family in reflection and prayer. And I just want to mention that we will be live Christmas Day night, and we will be live New Year's Day night in studio, just to keep you company. Invite us, please. Can we invite ourselves to your table? We'd like to be brought to your table, and we'll break bread with you, and it'll be uplifting and good show on Christmas as well as New Year's Day. So broadcasting live there. So definitely tune us in. And you know what? I was talking to my wife. We've got friends who are infirmed and various stages of their lives, and they don't have family, and they tune us in, and we've been getting a lot of good feedback saying, we appreciate you being live on the Christmas and New Year's holidays, including Thanksgiving too. When most talk show hosts are off and spending time, or if they're on at all, they have a sub or a substitute host, but guest host. But we would prefer to be with you, our extended family, on those days. So, all right. One of the first things I'd like to get into, Joe, is we had talked earlier about there was a Carolyn Glick from Israel, from the I believe it's Israel National News. Now I could be wrong. It could be. Let me just see here.
I have the article
Jerusalem, for Israel Video Network. Yes, go ahead.
All right, Carolyn Glick. This lady or a ma'am is part of this, and this clip is from the Israel Video Network. Carolyn Glick just made sure that every European ambassador will think twice before opening their mouth. Carolyn Glick, JerusalemPost.com senior contributing editor, responds to Danish ambassador
that's Jesper Var.
Jesper Var's statement that Israel is better than Palestinians and therefore is being judged by different standards. And we do have the audio clip uploaded. We can play that at whenever you want.
Well, one thing I'd like to do is if you don't mind, let's. I don't want to say dispense with this, but I think as people are filing in and beginning to listen, I think that this is important. Well, let's go ahead and play this first. I think it's important for people to understand the context in which Israel is being referred to by the European Union as well as the United States, and to hear. Okay, listen to this in two parts. The first part is this Danish ambassador's dressing down, if you will, of Carolyn Glick, or not directed to necessarily her, but of Israel in general, dressing down of Israel and the people within Israel, and Carolyn Glick's response. Now, the reason I selected this is there is a lot of context, and we've talked about Israel. We've talked about Israel this week already, and even last week, I believe, might have been mentioned. But listen to what she's got to say, and listen to how she handles the statements, because I think that this kind of sums up our position, and it clears up some misconceptions with respect to the Jewish people. And with that, well, let's just do it now and then move on to the topic matter at hand, although Israel does figure prominently into the pathway to World War III.
Well, thank you very much. I am a little bit concerned about the Europe bashing, I must say. There is the allegation that Europe is applying double standards, discriminating. There was the issue of the proportionality and the civilian casualties in the Gaza conflict. Let me make this point. I think Israel should insist that we discriminate you, that we apply double standards. This is because you are one of us. We are not looking to Israel, and sometimes the response on the part of some Israeli interlocutors is, look what's going on in Syria, look what's going on elsewhere. Those are not the standards that you are being judged by. It's not the standards that Israel would want to be judged by. So I think you have the right to insist that we apply double standards and put you to the same standards as all the rest of the countries in the European context.
But isn't it kind of patronizing to the Palestinians to say that we hold Israel to a higher standard than we hold you?
I'm not sure it is. I think there is a situation where we recognize that there is a very strong, one very strong party in the conflict, and a much weaker party. In that respect, I think engaging our long-standing partner Israel, with whom we have extensive cooperation in trade and cultural affairs, whatever, in a different fashion that we engage others is natural.
So I think that this patronizing attitude towards us, that we should be happy that you have a separate standard for Israel, is really, I'm sorry, it's a statement of contempt for our intelligence. I consider it to be an obsession. I consider Europe's keen interest in the Middle East, specifically Israel, to be an obsession, and it's an obsession that Jews have seen from Europeans from the time of Jesus, and we know what it is. That's one thing. The other thing here is, we have this whole common culture. I mean, really? We respect international law. You guys make it up. There is a binding UN Security Council resolution, Chapter 7, from 2001, 1373, that bars every single UN member nation from funding or otherwise supporting in any way terrorist organizations. And you guys are funneling billions of euros into rebuilding terrorist-controlled Gaza. All right? This is in contravention of binding international law that you signed on to. Now, on the other hand, there's imaginary international law that says that you are required to sanction Jewish projects from Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria. There is no such binding law. You guys are funding settlements in Western Sahara. You're funding them. You're funding them directly. So, this is not a double standard. This is a singular standard for Israel. It's not about international law. It's about an obsessive, compulsive need to constantly pick at the Jewish state. And no, I don't want to be proud that you're looking at us in a different standard from our neighbors, because you're not looking at our neighbors as human beings. What you're saying is they're objects. The only actor in this entire region are the people they're trying to annihilate. And the only people who are supposed to be judged for our actions, and always poorly, are the people who are doing everything possible, more than Europe, right? More than the United States, more than anybody, in order to protect the lives of the Palestinians. So with all due respect, and I would love it if I could have more respect for Europe, but your treatment of Israel, your singular standard, your obsessive, compulsive need to constantly pick at the Jewish state, right, makes it very, very difficult to worry if you made a helpful statement saying, Gaza should be demilitarized. The only way, and you know this, the only way that Gaza will be demilitarized is if Israel reoccupies Gaza. That's the only way. The only military organization here that is not a terrorist organization and is not a terrorist supporting organization is the IDF. And for that, we are calumniated, we are condemned, we are investigated, we are put on trial every single day. Our soldiers are condemned by you. Our soldiers come in and are being called murderers for protecting our families. And I'm sorry, it's very hard for me to feel any respect for this kind of behavior.
I think your point is clear. I'd like to give the European ambassadors a chance to respond to that.
All right, you can cut that if it's not already cut. Okay. What you just heard really was the Danish ambassador speaking essentially on behalf of the European Union, really met by Caroline Gluck, very articulate. What this imbecile from the European Union said was to Israel, we are holding you to a double standard. We're letting the Palestinians and the terrorists have a break because, they're just not as developed as you are, and Europe is. Well, so we're going to support the terrorists because you should act differently to Israel, in other words. And this is amazing to me because if you take that very same template and apply it here to the United States, this is the mentality of the renegade chief. And I think that we're seeing the soft tyranny of expectations, the soft tyranny of expectations by our leaders and race baiters, the bigotry, the hatred, the anti-Semitism. this is equivalent to what's taking place here in the United States. So I think what we're seeing here together is a very assertive statement by Caroline Glick of the Jerusalem Post and a very telling statement by the Danish ambassador. I just wanted to play that because I think that says it all. All right. And Israel does figure in, by the way, to World War III. But go ahead.
Yeah. Before we get any further into the program, I don't know. I don't remember if you mentioned this. We talked with Blog Talk today about a few things. One, the size of the audio format, how they've changed it to a much bigger file size, and the player, and how the option for the play in your default player has been removed, and among other things. And they were very nice and receptive and understand that they have issues going on. But one suggestion that the lady, I think Cynthia was her name?
Cynthia. And well, let me just say this. Cynthia said that the last time that we asked you folks as listeners to email, especially having problems listening live, she said she got so many emails, and they were all very respectful. And she just commented, and even commented today, I think a year later, that that really made a very distinct positive impression with BTR. And but emails help. So listen to what Joe's going to say, because the core issue is the inability to, or the removal of the play in your own player button, and also the problems that you do have with the getting it to play live, and then the loop feedback starting the program from the beginning. So having said that, be very articulate. 3 issues: the lack of a playing live, or playing your own player.
She said making sure you have a Flash player updated.
Right.
Is a way that helps also. She said Firefox is much more efficient than any other
browser.
Internet browser. And she also stated that they are coming back with a download or listen in a different player option. She's just not sure when that is going to be released. But she asked that people with issues, technical or otherwise, just send them an email. If you go at the bottom of the page on the Blog Talk page, you just find their help or support email. And we're going to put a link up on our page. And you just send them an email if you're having trouble, or if you have a question on...
or a complaint, but do it very nicely, because they respond better to the nice ones. And for example, your inability to play it live, and I have a problem on one of my computers not being able to play it live, and it has because they've gone to an all Flash player format. So if you just say, hey, if you send Blog Talk an email, say we would really appreciate bringing back the ability to, or change it back to the way it was, and also have the option for a listen in your own player that you recall.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the point here is she said, make sure that the listeners send us emails to let us know if they're having issues. That way they can help everybody. They said that the listeners are our listeners. With the dealings that they've had with them have been nothing but pleasant, and that they care not only for us as hosts, but for you guys, the listeners, and want your experience to be the easiest and most convenient ability to listen to the show, and to email them with any questions or issues that you have pertaining to our show, and this way that they know that there's an issue, and they can go from there to work on it. And they are very helpful and supportive. So I would urge anybody who's having issues or can't get the show to play live, have had something changed with this reformatting change that has made you unable to listen live or listen to a whole show live, just send them an email. And you can do that through... if you find their help and support button, and we'll provide a link too. But just look up support on the search box on Blog Talk Radio, and you can go from there.
Yeah, and before we post it on our website, we want to make sure we've got the proper email address, so the email does not get deleted or so the most effective way of doing it. But they are awaiting your emails, Cynthia, and God bless her, she's a great lady. She's a listener, okay? So she understands what we're going through. She understands what you're going through. And they're just fantastic people. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't feel that, but she really wants to help, and she said, you've got the best audience. And Joe Buster and I said, well, you don't have to tell us. I mean, we know. So she's very impressed, and things do get done that way. They will respond. They will absolutely, positively respond to your, shall I say, complaints or concerns. So please, definitely do that. And thanks for mentioning that. I omitted that from the programming schedule here I had in front of me. So I was just really concerned with what's really going on. But if we can't be heard, that's a problem.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to be talking about the economy tonight. I'm going to play a quick clip here. This is Peter Schiff being asked a question by a reporter about the collapse of the U.S. dollar. Here's what he responded to. This was from yesterday.
Of course, you're very famous for having predicted the crash of 2008, the late 2000s. What are your thoughts right now, just quick and dirty thoughts, on where the dollar is going?
I think it's going down. I mean, not only is it going to go down against gold, which is clear, but it's going to go down against other fiat currencies. So you have to be very careful about any investments where your returns are going to be in dollars, because you don't really know what the dollar is going to be worth. What is it going to buy you in terms of purchasing power? So unfortunately, I think the dollar has a long way to decline, and that's going to be very unfortunate for Americans that depend on the dollar. I mean, the reason that we enjoy the standard of living that we do today, and of course it's a lot lower than it used to be, and it's a lot lower than it would be if we were more of a free market economy, but what standard of living we still have is a function of the willingness of the world to take dollars. I mean, we're able to print money, and we can use it to buy all the the goods that other people produce that we don't. But that's going to change, and in fact, it's kind of ironic that we're almost hastening the dollar's demise by fining the banks in France or in the UK or in Switzerland, or spying on the Germans. I mean, we're really antagonizing a lot of people who we should be sucking up to, because we need them to buy our currency. In fact, with the new FATCA rules that come into play, we're making it a lot more difficult for people to hold dollars. And there are more dollars outside the United States than inside the United States, and we need to keep it that way, because if those dollars come home, there's nothing to buy. Prices are going to skyrocket. We need to export our inflation, but unfortunately, I think it's coming back. Right, all those inflation chickens are going to come home to roost. All the money that we've printed and sent abroad is going to come back, and so the dollar is going to lose a lot of value. And you need to be cognizant of that. That's why most of the assets that we invest in at my company are abroad. And we want to own income streams in other currencies, whether it's the New Zealand dollar, the Singaporean dollar, the Norwegian krona, the Swiss franc. I mean, there are other currencies that we want to earn, not dollars.
Sure. Very great advice, as always, from Peter Schiff. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure.
Good luck with Liberty Me.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. That from Peter Schiff, as we have many, I don't know where you want to start on the economy tonight, Dad. We have new information from welfare statistics. We have new record high of price of ground beef. We have a new record level of a wealth gap between the rich and the poor Americans. We have hedge fund managers, IMF employees, and other people warning about the coming economic plunge that we're going to see here in this country, and including these articles stem from Bloomberg to RT to Zero Hedge to LA Times. There's a lot going on in the world of economic news today.
Well, I think one of the things that I think perhaps one of the first areas of concern, and I wrote about this in February of 2013. I'm going to just reiterate this right now. It's a killing off of the U.S. dollar. What we're seeing taking place, and if I can just summarize it, people say, well, when are we going to see the collapse of our economy? We're seeing it. We're watching it. We are in that collapse right this moment. One of the things, I would say this. I have not had the time to put this up on our website, but there is a video from sgtreport.com, urgent three new signs, total economic collapse is in progress. And the international criminal banking system, that banking cartel in the United States, is really now in the process of collapsing the U.S. dollar, and with that, taking out other currencies, including, but not limited to, the ruble, the Russian ruble. And the three most latest dramatic signs, now this according to the SGT report, CME implements a $400 wide gold circuit breakers for vast price swings, meaning they're expecting volatility, critical volatility in the gold market or in the precious metals market, to be perhaps more precise. The U.S. Treasury seeks, quote, survival kits for federal bank examiners, and then the U.S. taxpayers are now on the hook for $303 trillion in Wall Street derivatives. Well, what's that all mean? I mean, I'm not the. What's all of this mean? Well, what we're seeing take place right now. Just think back, if you will, to 1913, and think about the Federal Reserve. What's their mandate? The Federal Reserve's mandate. The Federal Reserve is mandated to ensure. Well, one of their mandates, or the primary mandates, is to ensure that the U.S. dollar is kept at a stable level. If you accept, for example, or even, it doesn't matter if you accept it or not, we have the Federal Reserve System in place. So what are they supposed to be doing? They're supposed to be preserving the dollar. Well, what's happened since 1913? The value of the dollar has not been kept stable at all, but it has fallen by 96, some say 98, but we'll go with the 96 cents on the dollar. So versus 1913 rates, or the implementation of the Federal Reserve, the value of the fiat currency has dropped 96% at bare minimum. So we've lost 96% of our buying power of a dollar compared to 1913, and I know that's kind of difficult to wrap your head around. Well, that is until you go to the store and see the price of ground beef at over $4 a pound. Then you'll see that did the cost of the ground beef go up, or did the buying power of the U.S. dollar go down? Now I'm talking about commodities or consumables or items that are not. I'm not talking about silver and gold or commodities that can be manipulated, or even oil, but everyday things. And that would go for toilet paper, it would go for paper towels, it would go for any type of, especially food. But this is actually getting now down to the wire, I believe, which is why, and all of this should answer why the police have been militarized. We are watching a criminal cabal of international bankers that are intent on destroying the U.S. economy. These bankers have the ear and even have positions within our own government to take down the U.S. dollar. And at the very same time, we are engaged in asymmetrical warfare against Russia. And let me tell you, Putin is not a happy camper at this point in time, because the value of the ruble has fallen, free fall, almost 50%. I think it's 47%. So this is economic warfare that precedes the hot warfare. Folks, this is so important to understand what's taking place right now, because it's taking place. Isn't it interesting, Joe, that the Federal Reserve Act was passed over Christmas the holiday. Well, I think what we're seeing is a replay of certain things take place. The dollar is being destroyed during the same time period. It's an economic matter. I mean, they want to take the dollar down. That'll kill the sovereignty of the United States. But it's also going to create, in addition to everything else, it's taking down, and we are striking with oil, using oil as a weapon, weaponized oil via Saudi Arabia. We're striking at the ruble. Don't forget, the United States and Saudi Arabia tight. Obama tight with the Saudis, and the Saudis. I mean, when it comes right down to it, creation of much like the oil. Well, back in the day, creation of the oil consortium. I mean, this is a CIA project. So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was essentially created by the CIA, and Obama is playing or working the Saudi agenda. So what we're seeing here is really a chess game at 3 levels, and no one really is talking about this, and it's unfortunate because we are going to be. People are expecting, folks. People are expecting. The majority of people are expecting to see Brian Williams or whoever the anchor is on the newscast come out and say, well, okay, today the dollar collapsed, and now we've got to fix, or now we're going to get into a new system here. Or the president, the renegade in chief, excuse me, I made a mistake there, take to the airwaves and say, well, we've got a problem, 2008. Well, this is going to make 2008 look, well, this is going to make not only 2008, but the Great Depression look like a walk in the park.
And we didn't see the full effects from the 2008 crisis because, as you remember, the banks were quote-unquote bailed out. They were saved. Henry Paulson, the head of the Fed at the time, came in and said that give us the money or the military will be in the streets tomorrow. And they gave him the money. They bailed out Wall Street. They bailed out the corporations. They bailed themselves out. And if that action hadn't have happened, I don't know if his threats were bottomless or if they were real, in the sense that there would have been an economic downturn so disastrous that it would have called for military to be on the streets. Or if he was just saying that to further, what would be the proper term? Extort money from the American taxpayers. Regardless, we know that since the Federal Reserve has set up this system of Federal Reserve notes and our current monetary policy, when they set this up, the dollar, a $1 bill, used to be worth $1. Well, by the standards of 1913, that dollar today is worth what? 2 pennies?
4 cents. Actually, according to the majority of people, 4 cents. That's the buying power.
And it can only go down. It's not going back up. It has not gone back up. Never has gone back up. It's only gone down. So that 4 cents of buying power is all that's left to be collapsed. Before that is no buying power behind the U.S. dollar. And just imagine we wake up in a day and there's no banks open, there's no stores open, there's no money for food stamps and those benefit programs, there's no Social Security checks coming, there's no disability payments being made, there's no federal programs or grants being given to the community for special programs like shelter, homeless, rehab type facilities. Just imagine that all disappearing in a day, and then the population's reaction.
Well, and that's exactly what is going to happen. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but that's our job, isn't it? So those of you who are frightened to the point of
fearmonger,
yeah, right. Folks, we are witnessing right now the takedown of the U.S. dollar. We are witnessing the end of the petrodollar. We are witnessing also the final push against Russia, which will necessitate at some point or develop into a hot war. And right now, Russia, their main sources of income, they've got really three main sources of income. They export oil, gas, and weapons. Okay, through the sanctions, weapons have been affected. Through this asymmetrical warfare, oil and gas have been affected. Hence the decline in the ruble. Now, let me just we in order to understand what's happening right now, we have to look at what's happened in the recent past. And folks, I would urge everyone to look into this. Do not take my word for it. If you have a pen and paper, you can write these terms down. You can do your own research. Remember Hurricane Sandy. Just think about that or just keep that in the back of your mind as I tell you about this. Does everyone know what the DTCC is? Hopefully,
the Department of I don't know. It sounds like some kind of Department of Treasury and Currency Counterfeiting. I don't know. DTCC, you said?
Am I muted here? Okay, no. Yeah, DTCC is the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, just so people know what that is. Okay. It's an acronym for the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. It is it's actually a private company which provides clearing and settlement services to the financial markets. Now, this is essentially their mission statement. The DTCC provides a way for buyers and sellers of securities to make their exchange in a safe and efficient way. It also provides custody, central custody of securities. DTCC was established in 1999 as a holding company to combine the Depository Trust Company and the National Securities Clearing Corporation. This DTCC, it directs, automates, centralizes, standardizes, and streamlines processes in the capital markets. Now, through its subsidiaries, DTCC provides, the subsidiaries actually provide the clearance and settlement information services for equities, corporate and municipal bonds, unit investment trusts, and so on. Government and mortgage-backed securities, as well as money market instruments, over-the-counter derivatives. Now, the DTCC was established, or the DTC, the Depository Trust Company, was established back in 1973. And it seemed like a good idea at the time, because what it did was it served to alleviate the rising volumes of paperwork and the lack of security that developed after the rapid growth in the volume of transactions in the security industries originating in the 60s. See, and this is important to really understand, I believe anyway. Before the DTC and the NSCC were formed, brokers had to physically exchange stock certificates. So what they did was they had a whole bunch of, and you can watch movies, I think, and you'll see the movies and where you've got messengers riding bikes and with messenger bags, and they're inside the bags were certificates and checks and such, and they would actually have to physically hand off the transactions, the paper transactions. They actually physically exchanged stock certificates and the checks for those. Now, back in the late 60s, there was an unprecedented surge in trading. In fact, one day, by today's standards, it's nothing with the high frequency trading, but in one day there was like 15 million shares on the New York Stock Exchange. This was back in April of '68. It had grown to a daily 50 million shares. So just imagine, that's a lot of bicycles, messengers, and So what they said, okay, we're gonna establish the Depository Trust Corporation. All right. Well, that's kind of the backstory of the DTC. Well, that evolved ultimately. Okay, so that evolved ultimately into the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the DTCC. And let me just drive home the point again that this is a private holding company, a private financial holding company, established in 1999. This is a holding company for the DTC that was established in 1973. And they are located, physically, their headquarters are located at 55 Water Street in New York City. Now, the executive chairman is Robert Druskin, and the CEO is Michael Bodson. Now, having said all of that, now remember 55 Water Street. Remember that address. Well, okay, so what? We've got this DTCC. It seems like a harmless entity. It's a private corporation. It's there to facilitate stock transactions. Well, if you have stocks, if you've got bonds, securities, you don't own them. And not only that, you don't even know, and we've addressed this before, we don't even know who holds. Chances are 99% of the mortgages out there are not held by the bank or by the facility in which you got your mortgage. No. All of these are held by yet another private company. And here's where it gets kind of murky and weird. Who owns all of this? A subsidiary of the DTCC known as Seed and Company. And that is spelled CEDE. Now, in case...
Okay, wait a second. Can you talk to me about this?
Yes.
This has ties to the UN. And go ahead and continue.
Okay.
I'll chime in after.
Well, one of the things, and people out there might be saying, well, where have you been? We know this. Well, there are a lot of people that don't know this. The Wall Street market system is extremely hidden behind layer upon layer upon layer of different veils. And the actors in the this asymmetrical warfare in which we are speaking is not directly the U.S. government, no, but private corporations headed by the DTCC, and as well as the Seed and Company, CEDE and Company. These are the people who actually own everything. Everything. They own everything. But here's the issue. When you start getting into, well, who owns Seed and Company? You won't find out. Go ahead and do a search. If you're by a computer right now, do a search of Seed and Company and see what you come up with.
Spell that seed again?
CEDE. C like Charlie, E like Edward, D dog, E Edward. Seed, as if I'm going to seed something to you. They are involved. This is asymmetric warfare by the DTCC and Seed and Company as a financial arm of the government to engage in asymmetrical warfare, not just against other countries, but against us. If you want to know who's running things, well, definitely it's the globalists behind this, but the globalists are already in the door and are, I do say, our directors have directorship positions within these organizations. We are seeing now the end game. This is the end game that we're seeing take place right now.
Let me read this last line from an article that I was going to get into this last paragraph, and then I'll go back to the top. This is from altmarket.com. Ultimately, the death of the dollar will be hailed in the mainstream media as a good and necessary thing. They will call it karma. They will call it progress. They will even call it decentralization and a success for the free market. But it will not feel like a positive development for the American public, who will suffer greatly as the dollar crumbles. Only those educated in underpinnings of shadow banking will understand the whole thing is a charade designed to hide the complete centralization of sovereign economic governance into the hands of globalists, using the IMF and BIS as fiscal heroes, saving the world from
the Bank of International Settlements.
Yeah, saving the world from the state of economic destruction the elites themselves have secretly created. And the title of this article is IMF Now Ready to Slam the Door on the U.S. Dollar. Written by a Brandon Smith. It's a very good read, and we'll get into more of this, but it talks about, since the continued destabilization of after the wrap-up of the Fed's tapering of quantitative easing 3, making very little sense in terms of maintaining the manipulated illusion of economic health, unless, of course, the Federal Reserve was implementing the taper in preparation for a renewed fiscal catastrophe. That is to say, the central bankers have established the lie of American fiscal recovery and separated themselves from the blame for the imposition they know is coming. If the markets were to collapse while stimulus is officially active, the tragedy would be forever a milestone on the necks of the banksters. And they can't have that now, can they? This is not to say that the individual central banks and even currencies are not expendable in the grand scheme of things. In fact, the long-term goal of globalists have been to consolidate all currency systems and central banks under the outward control of the IMF and the Bank of International Settlements. But the particular article he refers to here, The Economic Endgame Explained, summarized dangerous trends that have been concerns for economists for years, namely the strategy by international financiers to create a dollar collapse scenario that will be blamed on pre-positioned scapegoats. I have no idea in what form these scapegoats will take. There are simply too many possible triggers for financial calamity. What I do know is the goal of this endgame to remove the dollar as the world reserve currency status and to pressure the American people into conforming or even begging for a centralized administration of our economy by the EMF. The delusion perpetrated in the mainstream media is the IMF is a U.S.-dominated institution. I'll repeat. A delusion perpetrated by the mainstream media is that the IMF is a U.S.-dominated institution. This author says, as I have outlined on many occasions, this is false. The IMF, like all central banks, is dominated by the international corporate banking cartel. Central banks are merely front groups for globalists, and I am often reminded of the following quote from elite insider Carol Quigley when I hear people suggest the central banks are somehow independent from one another, or the Federal Reserve is itself a singular source of the world's economic ills. It must not be felt that these heads of the world's chief central banks were themselves substantive powers in world finance. They were not. Rather, they were the technicians and agents of the dominant investment bankers in their own countries who had raised them up and were perfectly capable of throwing them down. The financial powers of the world were in the hands of these investment bankers, also called international or merchant bankers, who remained largely behind the scenes in their own unincorporated private banks. These formed a system of international cooperation and international dominance which was more private, more powerful, and more secret than that of their agents in the central banks.
All right, let me bring you back now to the DTCC. And go ahead.
Okay. Well, he closes out by saying the Federal Reserve and the U.S. government and their dollar are expendable to the elites. as any other economic or political appendage. It can be replaced,
right,
and will yet with another illusionary structure. If this furthers their goal of total centralization. So what this author is saying is that not only the Federal Reserve System, not only the dollar, but the entire U.S. government and all the people inside of this government are expendable to the elites in order to obtain their political or economic agenda.
And that's a very important fact to understand, because you cannot understand what's going on without understanding the fact that the even at the Senate level and in the executive branch, these people are dupes themselves when you consider that the federal government really at this point has been subjugated to the Federal Reserve, which has been subjugated by the DTCC and their subsidiary Seed and Company. And we are watching in real time the takedown of the U.S. dollar and of the global economy at the hands of not just the globalists who operate the Fed, but also the DTCC as well as Seed and Company. Because here's now let me take you back to last year, or I'm sorry, when was it? March, I think, of 2013, when Hurricane Sandy. When did Hurricane Sandy go through? I mean, that doesn't matter. Just go back to the. Go ahead. When
that was in October of 2013, I believe.
Was it just last year, or it seems like I don't know.
It was. I'll do a quick search here. Sandy.
Hurricane Sandy. Well, what happened while you're doing that? What happened was this. If you recall, there were $37 million worth of securities being held in a vault.
2012.
2012. Okay, so, so, all right, fine. I'm sorry, 36 or $37 trillion, trillion with a T, securities that were held in the vault at 55 Water Street, the home of the DTCC as well as Seed and Company. Remember, then the hurricane came in and it flooded this vault and made the securities inaccessible. Now, think about this. The proximity of that vault of the DTCC at 55 Water Street is close to J.P. Morgan Chase, and it's also close to the Federal Reserve vault. Those vaults are waterproof. Well, apparently DTCC vault is not waterproof, right? Because the flood from the hurricane destroyed $37 trillion worth of security paper being held in the DTCC vaults. Now, as if that's not bad enough, and you just can't make this stuff up, remember, as the floodwaters receded and they were just drying things out, supposedly trying to get things back to normal, what happened? A fire broke out. A fire broke out in the waterlogged vault that held the $37 trillion worth of securities. Now, this $37 trillion in perishable paper stocks held at one private company. And also 65,000 troy ounces of gold, palladium, platinum bullion. Well, they couldn't access that either. So let me remind you, DTCC is a private company that really, they boasted $23 trillion in assets back in 2003. That's a lot for a private company, isn't it? It claimed a loss of $37 trillion in paper stocks in its flooded basement in New York in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy.
I lost that at the casino last week.
Yeah, really.
Basement flood.
Okay, so the DTCC, legally, they were the legal owners of all the stocks.
How many trillion? 34 trillion, did you say?
37. And isn't that an interesting number? Okay, just saying. And 55 Water Street. Wow, isn't that a ominous or a kind of a telling location? But you see, DTCC legally owned all of the stocks by way of Seed and Company, which really is the best kept secret in the world, or at least in America. Now, many people will come out and say, well, Seed and Company was created as just for convenience, and really it's kind of a shell company. It's meaningless. Well, those people who say that are really not being truthful. It's not a dummy company. It's not a mere formality. The Federal Reserve insists that DTCC handle each and every transaction, from each brokerage institution, and so on. So, I mean, we know the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor has it. Do they have any reserves? We know that. We know that the Federal Reserve is not part of the federal government in any way. But the same guys who run the Fed also run the DTCC. And we don't know with any degree of specificity who runs or we can speculate, but we don't really know with any certainty of this privately held corporation called Seed and Company that owns everything, that created as a subset of DTCC. We don't know who the principals are there. I'll just say the globalists and the very same people that are in the Federal Reserve or high in the Federal Reserve, the globalists, the bankers, and all that.
We skipped we're late for the top of the hour break, but article here, Russians flock to stores to preempt price rises, fearing a bank run. Frantic buying big-ticket items. Russians preempted stores to try to get their full value with the ruble in recent days. And we have this story and much more on the economic condition of the globe from all perspectives.
And the explanation of how all this ties together. I didn't mean to overtalk you, but we were talking about DTCC and Seed. This is not. This is connected to what we're talking about, World War III in Russia, and the takedown of the ruble as well, and how this will lead to a shooting war. I just want to make sure that people understand there is continuity to tonight's program. So, go ahead, Jim.
All right. With that, let's go to our top of the hour break. We're going to take the break now. We'll come back after a few short messages from our sponsors. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Wednesday, December 17th, 2014, 1 week away from Christmas Eve. And it's coming up so fast. It'll be 2015 before you know it. So get your shopping done, get your preparations for the holiday season in order, because it's coming quick. We'll be right back after these short messages. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Aileta Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Wednesday, December 17th, 2014, just a few short moments, blinks of an eye before we will be in 2015, and it will be here, like I said, before you know it. We've been talking about the economy globally and nationally, what's been happening in Russia, to the Federal Reserve, what we're seeing here in America with the U.S. dollar being, I don't know.
You know what, Joe? What you mentioned. Yeah, but what you mentioned about Russia, what they're seeing in Russia, where you've got people flocking to, they realize that the 50,000 rubles that they got stashed underneath the mattress in their house, or it stuffed in the bank. They realize that if it's in the bank, it can disappear, and if it's in the mattress, it's losing value by the hour. So we're going to change these paper receipts of debt because they've got a central bank system like we do. They're going to change these into something a little bit more, something that will hold its value. So what you're seeing over in Russia take place today is kind of, shall we say, an opening act of the play that you will see take place in this country. And if that scares you, it should. Or at least, if that gets your attention, it should.
Yeah.
If I can just continue and I'll finish this up. None of this, I mean, all of this together has been planned for really the better part of a century. If you look at all civilizations, all empires, all empires, I'll just say, if you look at it that way, 10 generations or 250 years is about the lifespan, and there are 4 primary signs of, well, more than that actually, but we're looking at the final signs, the end game right now playing out in front of us. And I think that we are guilty as anyone else. I think we glossed over that $37 trillion in stocks lost in all that perishable paper stocks destroyed at the private company in New York at 55 Water Street. I don't think we did that justice, in previous in previous programs. I think that we have to look at that as part of a larger illusion, and this happened too amidst the pending indictment of banks and federal officials and others for racketeering and money laundering. And consider it in a way. I mean, we could equate this in a way. Remember, right before 9/11, Rumsfeld stood at the Pentagon and said, "Hey, you know what? Guess what? There's $3 trillion missing dollars, or $3 trillion missing." Right. And a day or so later, the Pentagon was hit today.
Yeah, like 12 hours later, almost.
Yeah. Okay. Well, BTCC is 34% owned by the New York Stock Exchange on behalf of its members. And who are among its members? Well, the same people who own the Fed and DCC naturally. Okay, so the same people who own or who buy government officials at campaign time, the donations, and so on. So if you're really not familiar with how the whole thing works, you can you can see that. I suppose you can call a stockbroker, for example, or a bank, and tell them you want to purchase some shares of common stock, or maybe even a small municipal bond, for example. And what they'll do is they'll set up a brokerage account for you, and they're going to act as your agent with a full, durable power of attorney. You've got to sign that over to them to conduct business on your behalf upon your buy or sell instructions. And then the broker, what the broker does, the broker is going to place your stock or bond purchase into their safekeeping under a street name. According to the DTC, no bank or broker can place any stock or bond into the firm's own name due to FTC and SEC regulations. But the broker or bank must then send the transaction to the DTC for a ledger posting. But think about the high-frequency trading. How can all of this take place? It's absolutely impossible, and this is where the other part of another segment of this equation, another segment of this wheel of really fraud comes in. Because under the high frequency trading, how in the world can you make ledger entries, which still must be done under each and every transaction, when you are talking about billions of transactions or per day? It's physically impossible. So for the people that are talking on the financial channels, it's just insane. This, for example, this has been a good trading day or whatever. They must know. They're not clueless. They've got to know that all of this is fraudulent. But once you turn over your stock, your bond, your municipal fund over to DTC, the private holding company, as shown on your stock certificates or whatever, on the actual certificates will appear either Seed and Company, or Seed Company, or Seed and CO, period. Once that happens, you've got no real, actual, or even legal claim over these stocks or bonds. That's how. That's the fraud. Okay, so they are stealing through your good faith, and ignorance as well. They're stealing your money, or I shouldn't even say money, but your investment. So what happened with that $37 trillion? It just went up in flames after, of course, it was flooded. Now, how does that... So now that you've got a headache like I do right now after thinking about all of this, so how does this play out? What's going on right now? Well, the geopolitics of everything that's taking place, don't forget, the United States, at the behest of Saudi Arabia, I have to go back to this because Benghazi is a big part of this, and this is the bigger story behind Benghazi. You see, Benghazi was, it was weapons running, but there's the clip we play. It's about the future. It's about the oil. It's about the energy. It's about the economy. It's about taking everything, the globalists taking everything and creating this slave class, which is us. That's the bigger story behind Benghazi, and this is why we'll never get the real story behind Benghazi, because it fits into a financial asymmetrical state of war between the United States and Russia. And we are doing everything. Yeah, go ahead.
We've always, since the Federal Reserve and possibly from before, we've been economic slaves since that point, at the least since 1913. But they're rolling it out, and it sounds, odd to say that or hear that, but there's a type of slavery where you were given a freedom or a perception of freedoms, and there were good times that we saw, prosperity-wise, and now we're living on the other side of that scale, where we're living through the times that are necessary because those prosperity times happen.
Yes. And also remember this. I think this is perhaps one of the best statements, and it's not mine. I can't recall who to attribute this to. But when we stand at the cusp of change, as we are right now, whether it's good, bad, or, bad in this case, to understand something, in this case to understand exactly what's taking place, is to be liberated from it. Did you get that? At the cusp of change, to understand what's taking place, to understand something, is to be liberated from it. So once you understand how the game's played, or is being played, once you understand who is raping, pillaging, and taking your life's work and toil, and that of your children and your grandchildren, and once you understand who's behind it and how they're doing it, only then can you be liberated from it. So what we're seeing right now with all of this. You know who owns America? Well, he who owns the gold that makes the rules and has the control, but through its subsidiaries, the DTCC owns the majority of all public, private, civil, commercial, financial, and real assets of the United States. DTCC, therefore, has effective control and ownership over Wall Street, and through the subsidiaries and through Seed and Company, yeah, we're owned. We're owned, folks. The integrity of this country, well, what was once a free capitalist, and this is not capitalism. This is not capital finance. What was the financial market of capitalist financial market has been decimated, destroyed by the DTCC-controlled Federal Reserve and the financial stranglehold it has on the federal government. This is breathtaking. You want to know who to point your finger at? Well, every member of the Congress, the Federal Reserve, the DTCC, of course, the Security and Exchange Commission, the DTC, Seed and Company, three major banks, HSBC, Bank of America, and J.P. Morgan Chase. The globalists, such as Kissinger and Brzezinski and Gates and the Gates Foundation and Rockefellers and all of the members of the Illuminati. There you go. Now, how does this play into what's taking place in Russia and oil? I pulled up to the gas pumps today, and I heard somebody say, "Wow, didn't realize gas went down so much," and they were totally clueless as to why, but certainly thinking, "Oh, this is great. This is great."
It's still not down nearly close to the levels it should be at for the price per barrel. $2.75 here, I think, where we are. Which, yeah, it's nice, I'll admit. Put $15 in the tank today. Got over 5 gallons. That hasn't happened in a while.
No, of course not. But it's understand that all of this is a grand manipulation, and this is certainly cheap oil or a glut of oil is a direct. You might as well lob a bomb at Russia, because Russia, once again, you're looking at their exports being oil and gas. So, and we have to throw fracking into this as well. But you know what? I don't want to divert. I mean, fracking has its place, but rather than convolute the subject, I'm just kind of telling you, based on my research, my investigation, my interviews, this is what's taking place here. What is Putin going to do? Because he's got a massive problem on his hands, and he's not happy about it. I was talking with Ken Kay from Colorado today, friend of the program, who was saying, tomorrow now, Putin is going to have his long meeting with the media, where he sits and just has a long interview, I believe it's called, and he sits and answers all the questions from the media, and he just kind of goes off and has this one huge press conference. He does that once a year. Tomorrow's that. Tomorrow, I think everyone should be paying attention to what Putin says. We must be paying attention, very close attention to what Putin says. He will telegraph his intentions tomorrow during this long interview. Now, what we're seeing, once again, is a fight for energy. It's the attack against the dollar. It's an attack by our own people, and it's an attack against the ruble by our own people for all the marvels. This is for all the marvels. We're seeing the end game play out. Because if we can not just destroy the U.S. dollar, but destroy the ruble, as we did once before, and Putin remembers that at the Cold War, Well, what's going to happen? What's next? Sure, this will serve to usher in a global currency, and the entire world will look at America as the pariah of the world. You started this. You caused this. What mess have you caused? And of course, we're going to be ostracized. And you might think, well, that's not too bad. I mean, we can take that. No, you don't understand. We are going to be fighting, in that case, from a position of financial weakness. And also, we don't know. I mean, when people are starving in Russia, as Joe mentioned, people are flocking to convert. What they're doing, they're not buying a stove or a new refrigerator because they need it. They're buying that to preserve the wealth of their money. And I laugh at people who say, well, why should I buy silver or gold? Well, don't. Go out and buy a refrigerator, freezer. Go out and buy something that's going to hold its value. Certainly buy beans, bullets, and bullion, I suppose, would be a good 3B formula. But you see, this is what happens, because if you look at what's in your wallet, look at what's in your pocket, if anything, or look what's under your mattress, if anything, those are just notes of debt. Those are debt notes. Do you understand that? Debt notes. Now, let me just digress just a tad. What's on the money? This is why we talk about what's on the money. It's the Illuminati symbolism. It's the Phoenix. It's the Great Seal of the United States. It means this has been their plan all along. Passing around the dollars, the money, the fiat currency, we're part of it. Not only are we part of it, we're actually strengthening the curse by engaging in it. So this has so many levels to it. This is why we talk about the Illuminati symbolism. This is why people ought to, have to know about the Phoenix and about the symbolism that's on our money, because they're telling us what they're going to do, and they're doing it right now. None of this should be any surprise to listeners of this program for any length of time. None of this. I thought it was funny too. We went over to silverdoctors.com earlier, and they were talking about this issue, and our interview with Steve Quayle and metals guru David. Forgive me, I'm forgetting the last name, but in the comments section was posted our interview from a couple of weeks ago. So this is warfare at the economic level. And don't forget, the economic level warfare always precedes the bullets and bombs, right? Do we not know that? So there is a full-blown economic crisis in Russia right now. It's the 8th largest economy on the planet. It's in a state of turmoil. The shocking collapse of the price of oil has hit a lot of countries really hard, but few nations, as I mentioned, are as dependent on energy production as Russia. So therefore, the sale of oil and natural gas account, well, as I said, it's 2/3 of all Russian exports, and approximately 50% of all government revenue. So when this happens, this should be no surprise that the price of oil has declined almost 50% since June is catastrophic to the Russian economy. When you throw in the sanctions, the wild money printing by the central bank of Russia, and unprecedented capital flight out, you get the ingredients for this perfect storm in which we are seeing. And those of us living in the Western world, we should not be too smug about what's going on, because the nightmare that is going on right now in Russia is a preview of the economic chaos that is going to really hit the entire world and hit the United States.
Listen to this. This is from Bloomberg, Bloomberg.com. Yuan has a real shot at IMF blessing on reserve status.
No, yuan or yuan. I prefer yuan, by the way. Yuan.
For the first time, China has a real shot at getting the International Monetary Fund to endorse the yuan as a global reserve currency alongside the dollar and euro. In late 2015, the IMF will conduct its next twice-in-a-decade review of the basket of currencies its members can count toward their official reserves, including the yuan. In this so-called special drawing rights system would allow the IMF to recognize the ascent of the world's second biggest economy while aiding China's attempts to diminish the dollar's dominance in global trade and finance. China would need to satisfy the Washington-based lenders' economic benchmarks and get support from most of the other 187 member countries. So, in order for China to overcome the U.S. Dollar dominance and gain its currency on a world reserve status level, it has to satisfy the Washington-based lenders' economic benchmarks. Does that make sense?
It depends on. Excuse me. It depends on what paradigm you're living in, or you think you're living in, because perception to many is reality, when in fact perception is skewed by the mainstream media, the Illuminati-controlled mass media.
Goes on to say that it would certainly help China's objective of making the renminbi. I'm sorry. How do you pronounce that? Renminbi. A more widely used currency, said a professor
of
trade.
Same as yuan, by the way. So same as yuan. Okay. Renminbi. Just another name.
So the yuan. So this is from a professor of trade policy at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. And it goes on to say that the reserve currency status for the yuan would make central banks, particularly those in developing economies, more eager to hold yuan assets and diversify at the margin away from dollars, as well as euros, yen, and Swiss francs, he goes on to say. It goes on to say, a subsection of this article, conducive environment, there's a very high chance the yuan will be included in the SDRs. Nathan Chow, an economist at the DBS Group Holdings, Ltd., who previously worked at Hong Kong Monetary Authority, both political and economic circumstances are conducive to Hong Kong-based, Chow said. China's currency will probably be more widely used than the yen and the pound in financial markets and trades in the next few years, and the government should lobby other countries to have it included in the SDR basket, the Shanghai Development Research Foundation said in a report this year. The yuan share of money transferred around the globe rose to 1.72% in September, making it the seventh most used currency, according to the Society for Worldwide International Financial Telecommunications. But it goes on to talk about the currency controls. The IMF's requirements for freely usable currency basically means there aren't any controls on getting into and out of a currency, and China is a good way from that point at the moment. This, according to a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute of International Economics in Washington. Even so, China has pledged to move toward a market-determined exchange rate at the yuan's gains this year to help reassure the U.S. officials who have accused the PBOC of debasing its currency for economic disadvantage. Goes on to say it's very difficult to imagine they won't include the yuan in the basket. China has to be modified, but it will be included. And this is what they are talking about was the, in late 2015, the IMF conducts a twice-in-a-decade review of the SDRs and will recognize China as a world reserve currency next to the dollar and the euro.
I'm a little bit less optimistic than that states. I can see that the U.S. dollars is not going to have anything at all, any part in this at all. Only because what we heard from Kyle Bass, the interview he conducted in 2011, I reported on this in February of 2013 about about the taking down. We're just going to kill the U.S. dollar, kill the dollar. That's really my thought process. And if we look if we look at what's coming up as well, if we look at the geopolitics of different areas, we're looking at a number of different things. We're looking at racial, economic. We're looking at really a civil war in this country coming up, baited by the renegade in chief. We're looking at either it's going to have its roots in racial warfare or blowback against the Islamic component, or a combination of multiple of things, the haves versus the have-nots, or when people finally wake up to what's going on and they find their 401ks, their pensions, their savings, their checkings drained of money. So the perfect storm is being set up domestically here in the U.S., and then over in the Middle East, of course, the potential flashpoint, violence from Syria, which will spill over, as I had mentioned before, and we had mentioned on this program before, when we talk about Syria, which was what really Benghazi was all about, and the striking, taking out against, or the move against Syria is a move against Russia by proxy. Well, when Russia falls, that is going to explode, not implode, like Libya did, or Afghanistan or Iraq. And what's going to happen is the shrapnel from that is going to hit Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and far beyond. And, of course, the wild card in that, in the geopolitics of that, is ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. ISIS is a creation of Western intelligence. And it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. So look at Syria, which we're opening. We had touched on this earlier in this week. No one is watching Syria, or few are watching Syria. You're not hearing anyone in the panel discussions on the news talk about Syria. We're going full bore to destabilize Syria, take out Assad, and replace that leadership with something more conducive to the West, or with akin to the Arab Spring, so to speak. So then you've got, and we opened the program up with this, the Palestinian uprising that really looks like it's going to take off here in the next several months. And I would say a Palestinian attack, this intifada, maybe even a new intifada against Israel, especially after the March elections. I can see where this will take place, and that will further destabilize the region. Now, what about Iran? Well, if one considers that Iran will fail or will not honor any agreements, and there will be no agreements made with respect to their nuclear program, what would happen if Israel lobbed a couple of bombs and took out the nuclear program on their own? That would be a catalyst for a regional war. And if you look at the timetable with respect to Iran, that certainly looks like it would fall well within the 2015 or 2015 time period. Now, we know, too, that Saudi Arabia, the royal family, they've got some issues and problems, and they're not making friends. Consider perhaps the leadership to be impaired, whether through death. You're looking at King Abdullah, perhaps, dying. I mean, he's 90, I think, right? The Crown Prince, maybe, taking over. That would create other geopolitical nightmares as well. What about Putin? Well, what's he going to do? It's very possible that he could undermine NATO members by stirring up trouble within the. We can open up a new front, as we did. What about Estonia, Latvia? If you look at all of this together, you've got so many potential flashpoints all across the globe, and so many wild cards. But the real deal at the moment, the real deal, is the fight between the U.S. and Russia the proxy war, the asymmetrical warfare that's taking place, the globalists taking down the U.S. dollar, and in the process the Russian ruble, perhaps Russia going first, or so it appears, and it's going to domino from there. So, folks, the hour, what I will say is, it appears, just from doing the research that I've done and Joe's done and our collective and individual research, things could get very, very ugly. Very ugly. Do not take your eyes off it.
Will get very ugly.
Yeah, that's true. It's just a question of when. So don't take your eyes off of Syria. Understand that the economic war that's taking place, it is a war. It's not some sort of one-off event with respect to the ruble. Understand how the United States system is set up and the fraud that has taken place since, well, over the last couple of years, or really over the last 100, but if you want to get very specific to the times in which we're dealing with, since 2008, and it's been exponentially exacerbated through the DTCC and their wiping out of $37 trillion of securities. Then, of course, you've got the precious metals fixing.
Yeah, and something we haven't discussed, there was a $1 trillion spending bill that the House and Senate came to an agreement on this last Saturday night that will fund the government through September of 2015. Oh, goodness, I had a pop-up video ad there.
And at what cost? $1.2 trillion.
In this bill, it includes for a $1,000 monthly subsidy for Congress to pay for their cars. That's one little nugget of fun in there. But it will fund the government through September of 2015. Now, that's an important time to remember. It will fund the government, this spending bill that they just, House and Senate agreed to, will fund the government through 2015 into September. While there was vocal opposition on both sides, there was enough support to send the bill to the president's desk. What is inside the bill has been debated. As more information leaks out, the criticism is expected to continue. Over the last week, Tea Party Republicans and Liberal Democrats voiced their grievances over what has been labeled a cromnibus spending bill.
Right, that's what we called it yesterday, and that's what it's been called, the cromnibus. Yes.
And they go on to say Republican Ted Cruz led the charge from the right, concerned that Obama's immigration plans were going to move through into next year. On the left, Elizabeth Warren pointed out multiple Wall Street giveaways and over $300 million that will be cut from the Pell Grant program as she voiced her displeasure on the Senate floor on December 12th. One issue that is flying under the radar, pointed out Friday by Democratic Congressman Jared Polios, pointing out that the government giving U.S. representatives $1,000 subsidies for cars for members of Congress. That's located on page 982 of the bills of the Rules Committee print text of the House Amendment Act. But it says none of the funds of this act may be used by the Chief Administrative Officer of the House Representatives to make any payment from any member representative allowance for the leasing of a vehicle, excluding mobile district officers, in an aggregate amount that exceeds $1,000 for the vehicle in any month. In addition to the vehicle subsidy, the campaign contributors are now allowed to donate 10 times as much as they were previously able to donate, with donations being capped at $324,000 a year. Taxpayers will once again be on the hook if the big banks can't back up their risky investments, which we know they can't, and we know we will be on the hook, as well as cuts to important federal agencies such as the EPA. The article ends there. But this $1 trillion spending bill, there is so much in here. I have not had a chance to go through this, but from what I hear, there's some shocking.
How many pages? 16,000 pages. I mean, it's an incredible. It's an incredible size. I think it's 16,000 pages. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah.
And a few congressmen said, "Oh, we were tricked into voting for it." And oh, come on, really? What are you 6?
And I see we're only about 10 minutes away from the top of the hour already, but in another economic article.
Before you jump there, I just want to say this. I'm going to be just going back to the long interview that's going to take place tomorrow, just very quickly, and then I'm going to turn back to you. The television over in Russia, the state television, Russia state television, they've been heavily advertising this interview. It's going to start at 4 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. I'll be awake to watch it, or I will make sure I'm there to begin watching it from start to finish. The promotion for this long interview, there's a narrator that comes on and says it's been a year of tough decisions. And then Putin interjects, "We took upon ourselves enormous responsibilities and risks." And then the narrator says, "and long-awaited victories against a backdrop of Olympic winners." And then more tough talk about politically motivated sanctions represent a mistake. And they, meaning the West, meaning the United States, should not have broken a mechanism of checks and balances. And then there's quite this menacing note in closing by this in this advertisement for this long interview. Our American friends are cutting off the branch they're sitting on. Now, when Steve Quayle talks about Russia, when others talk about Russia poking the bear, is this hyperbole? When the warnings, when he made warnings, Steve and others have warned about what's really taking place. Is this just talk? No. It's here right now. Look right before you. Just because Brian Williams or Katie Couric or whoever I don't even know if she's around anymore, but whoever's on the evening news doesn't talk about it does not mean it doesn't exist. So I'll just toss it back to you, Joe.
We have two articles here. First, the wealth gap in America has grown to an all-time high. The wealth gap between middle and upper middle income households has widened to the highest level on record, says a new report. Using the latest Federal Reserve data, the Pew Research Center said Wednesday the median wealth for high-income families was $639,000 a year, up 7% from 3 years earlier.
We're only 600,000 plus short of that, right? You and me.
For middle income families, median wealth, that is assets minus debts, stood at $96,500, unchanged from 2010. The result is the typical wealth of the nation's upper income households last year was nearly 7 times that of middle class ones. By Pew's calculations, that's the biggest gap in 30 years that the Fed has been collecting statistics from the Survey of Consumer Finances. The largest data reinforces the larger story of America's middle-class household wealth stagnation over the past 3 decades. The Great Recession destroyed a significant amount of middle-income and lower-income families' wealth, and the economic recovery has yet to be felt for them. Remember the recovery that everybody talked about and flaunted about during this re-election campaign of the current commander or renegade-in-chief? Remember Rachel Maddow's vehement rhetoric of reducing the national debt in half, and that Obama cut the debt in half, and all this outlandish, ridiculous claims that he has made some kind of turnaround in jobs and in income that has made a huge impact a positive impact on families of the middle and lower class in this country. Well, every piece of data and every report that we read says the opposite. People who are not or were not rich are getting poorer. People who were on the edge of being, middle class to lower class. When I say lower class, I don't mean any, I'm talking about in terms of their financial classifications. Basically, if you've been in the middle class, you've been losing value, you've been losing hours, you've been losing the purchasing power. And that's what it comes down to. Your purchasing power has been dwindled away over a 30-year period. And as we talked about earlier, the value of the Federal Reserve $1 bill 100 years ago was $1. Today it's less than 4 cents. Not much longer till it's zero. And here, before the break, Obamacare fines loom for the uninsured. Don't want people to forget about this. People without insurance are running out of time to avoid the hefty Obamacare penalties that the IRS will be handing down in 2016. Now, since the passage of the Obamacare Act, they have actually put in the law to triple the fines for the first year of people who are uninsured. Consumers face a February 15, 2015 deadline to buy insurance, after which those without coverage will be hit with fines of $325 per adult, or 2% of the family's income, whichever is higher.
I know.
Uninsured people.
I read that about 5 o'clock this morning. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to get people talking. Go ahead.
Uninsured people looking to escape the penalties are turning to the exchanges before they close, while the insurance companies and tax preparers are seizing on the looming tax hit as a business opportunity. One recent mass mailer from CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield obtained by The Hill warned political customers that the Washington, D.C. region that going without health insurance coverage would come at a steep cost. When you don't have health insurance, you put your financial security at risk, the mailer states. That's because under the new Affordable Care Act legislations, millions of Americans will have to go pay an increased penalty tax of at least 2% of their income in 2015 if they go uninsured. The good news? The letter said that CareFirst Blue Cross Blue Shield solution to help the people avoid the penalty, including coverage that is compatible with the financial assistance or free money from the government that will help qualifying individuals pay for insurance. Basically, they say if you want to avoid the penalty, you must comply.
Precisely. And while you're at the dinner table, it is talking to your Uncle Ned and your crazy sister-in-law and your crazy aunt that lives in your attic or whatever. I can tell you how to talk to them about the 10,535-page Affordable Care Act in 4 brief, concise sentences. You ready? Go ahead and you can write these down. Just put them on an index card. And so when you're at the table, you can pull out the index card from your pocket, and you can say, "Hey, I'll tell you exactly what's in the 10,535 pages. I can give you 4 sentences and summarize Obamacare." Ready? And I don't know who to attribute this to, but whoever sent me this is brilliant. Number 1, in order to insure the uninsured, we first have to uninsure the insured. Okay, that's part 1. Did you get that? In order to insure the uninsured, we first must have to uninsure the insured. Number 2, next, we require the newly uninsured to be reinsured. Goes to what you said, Joe. Now, number 3, to reinsure the newly uninsured, they are required to pay extra charges to be reinsured. And lastly, number 4, the extra charges are required so that the original insured, who became uninsured and then became reinsured, can pay enough extra so that the original uninsured can be insured, which will be free of charge for them. 4 sentences. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Oh, I don't know that you are wrong, but I know this. I'm about spent talking about the economy and going over this information. Not that it's not important, but it is tedious and
1/6 of the nation's economy has been torn to shreds by the Congress, by the Chief Judge, or by Roberts of the Supreme Court, by the renegade in chief and by smug little twits like Gruber, John Gruber, and every one of his little pals and minions running around collecting millions of dollars from different states and refusing to answer questions under oath because he's too good. And that's the problem, and no one is taking pitchforks and, flaming torches and standing outside of the White House and the Congress and Supreme Court, or better yet, their houses. No, not until. What's going to make them get off the couch? Not until they look and eggs, a carton of eggs, or if you can buy them, are $90, $100. The gallon of milk is $50, or $100, $110. I don't know. But see, or their cards get cut off, or the banks are closed and their money's worthless. Then maybe they might get off the couch. But until then, I'm afraid not. But those people, no. Look, folks, you folks listening to this program, knowing that we are at the cusp of change, in order, or once that you understand, or to understand something is to be liberated from that. So consider yourself very, very far advanced in this particular time period in which we live, and look for, if not in the short term, but look for 2015 to really be a very tumultuous year. Beans, bullets, bullion, water, prayer. Make sure you have your financial house in order, your spiritual house in order. Make sure you have your family in order, and pray. Folks, you're listening to a very special, what day is today? Wednesday, right? Wednesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Monday, Tuesday.
Oh, we're on a Wednesday.
Sunday. No, sorry. Folks, you're listening. Man. You know what?
Take your call, 6 hours.
No, you know what? We're gonna shut down.
Ladies and gentlemen, to the third and final hour of this Wednesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're going to be taking your phone calls this hour at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. Call in now. Press 1 to let us know you're on hold and you want to chime in. And we will start taking calls here in a few short minutes. I know, Ed, you had something you wanted to hit on.
Yeah, if I can reiterate this, I'm still getting emails, many emails, and it's so frustrating to us, folks. And I'm not asking you to do our job for us, but the information that we got from BTR, Blog Talk Radio, is just simply this. If you would send an email to Blog Talk Radio saying, we can't listen to Hagmann and Hagmann live. I mean, be very, very nice, because they are nice people, but we have to get the message across that this new system, this new way, this new and improved system, it just is not working. So if you could tell them, and the more emails that they do receive, let's say you have, I'm not asking you to make anything up, but if you are listening live and you know someone else can't, you feel free to speak on their behalf, saying, "Hey, look, this is really causing us. We're not able to listen. We're using Firefox. We're using, we've got Flash Up to Date and all this, but we can't listen live." I cannot tell you how many emails I've got. Please, if you can just send an email to Blog Talk Radio. They're nice people. They're very nice. I ask you to be very respectful. I know you are, and hopefully we can get this problem cleared up. I mean, it's so frustrating to us. We're constantly doing battle to be heard. Wow. But anyway, I just wanted to chime in there and say that.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, it is a fight. The amount of emails we receive on a daily basis pertaining to people not being able to listen live is frustrating for us to read these emails, because we don't want to hear people having problems listening to our show. We want everybody to be able to listen to our show. It's free. It's accessible via the internet and on more than one website, and you can call in by phone, and if you have free nationwide minutes or free long distance, you can listen via phone. You can listen many ways live, but we have the app. You just go to, there should be, I don't know, Dad, if you put the new link up on the website.
There's a new link.
There's a link. You know how you used to have the button for Google Play and then the Google for the iTunes? Well, there's one universal link that doesn't matter what type of phone you have. You can press this one link and it'll adjust to the specific type of phone you have. Ronnie sent that to us, and I had to call him anyway. But yeah, the Hagman and Hagman app. And Blog Talk also talked about when we talked with them today, they're launching not only coming back with a new listen, what was that option? Via the default player. They're coming back with their own app and new players. They didn't say when, but that's something on the horizon, yes. Before we get to calls, one thing headline I want to hit on, Cuba has been in the news today, and there has been a U.S.-Cuba agreement. The White House released a fact sheet charting a new course on Cuba. Today, the United States takes an historic step to chart a new course in our relations with Cuba and further engage and empower the Cuban people. We are separated by 90 miles of water, but brought together through the relationships between the 2 million Cubans and Americans of Cuban descent that live in the United States and the 11 million Cubans who share similar hopes for a more positive future of Cuba. They go on to state the U.S.'s isolation of Cuba has failed to accomplish our enduring objective of promoting the emergence of a democratic, prosperous, and stable Cuba. It goes on to state that some of the things they're going to do is restore an embassy in Havana. And there's a whole laundry list of things here that is part of this. But one thing that was interesting I found is that the Pope played a major role in this new or renewed partnership, or what would you call it? Policy.
You don't want to know what I would call it, but go ahead.
Yeah, and the Pope had a major role in this Cuba deal, as the headline on Newsmax says, and it goes on to just state just a few quick things here. Pope Francis was vital in bringing the U.S. and Cuba back to the negotiating table, helping Wednesday to lead a historic announcement that relations would be normalized, said President Barack Obama in an address from the White House. Obama says the Pope sent a letter to him and to the Cuban President Raul Castro this summer that gave momentum to the normalizing relations, BuzzFeed citing statements by a senior White House official. At the same time Obama was delivering his address, Castro was delivering his own address in Cuba, also crediting the pontiff for his influence in brokering an agreement, CNN reported. So, what is the Pope's interest in reuniting relations between the United States and Cuba? That's my question. I don't know.
Repeat that question. I think it bears repeating.
What is the Pope's interest in brokering a deal between the United States and Cuba, settling their differences and coming together? I understand, U.S. policy. The U.S. might want to, since the Cuban Missile Crisis and notice the timing too. We're seeing what this things happening with the Russian economy. Well, we had and this is before my time, so you might have to guide me along. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis, this Russian Cold War, and Cuba played a big part in the Cold War.
Well, of course.
As we see the rhetoric increasing about Russia and the U.S. butting heads again, all of a sudden the Pope is interceding in U.S.-Cuba relations for an agreement between the two countries to be made at a time when the tensions between Russia and the U.S. are now at another all-time high. There's a lot more to the story I'm not seeing and haven't read into yet.
Yeah, this is part of the... all right. First of all, with respect to Obama alone, don't forget Obama, his Democratic headquarters in Texas. Remember those photographs, ladies and gentlemen, where they had Che Guevara shirts available and Che Guevara posters hanging in that Democratic headquarters, and perhaps more than one. Now, the real issue is what you're asking, and this is definitely a very important aspect to this. Pope Francis, his role in brokering, in Canada even, their role in brokering this Cuban deal. Now, just very quickly, isn't it interesting that this Pope, and you've got to understand, too, the Jesuit aspect of this. Do I dare bring this up? Of course, why not? And this is not to bash Catholics. I'm not bashing Catholics whatsoever. Please understand that. But you've got a Pope who dares not become involved in judging or stating anything about, so who dares not judge anyone who's a homosexual because it's not his place. But yet he inserts himself into this. Foreign policy's okay, but I can't get into judging people. I can't get involved, really. It's who am I to judge about homosexuality? But let me get involved in foreign policy. What am I missing? And it's interesting because I've seen reports where JFK, according to the White House, well, JFK would back. I'm sure if JFK were, right now, he'd back this. Wow, how far have we come from 1961? And I'm not trying to
and I have a
elevate
question.
JFK.
From a listener along those lines.
Okay, hang on a second. JFK in 1961 says that's not what what your country could do for you, but today Obama asks what your country can do for you. Just think of it that way. Go ahead.
The listener asks, do you think Obama could have share the same fate as JFK over this Cuba deal? And I don't know, too much of what was. I know that what happened with JFK and Cuba was there was a big part of the mafia had casinos and there was a huge money laundering base of operations for the mafia. There was CIA people that were hung out to dry and things I don't, like I said, understand history. I wasn't alive when it happened.
Oh no, and neither was I. Right? No. Okay. All right. If that person is questioning, if that person is suggesting the fate of JFK in Dallas was a direct result of Cuba, or his handling of Cuba, or even more specifically the Bay of Pigs, I think that perhaps is a little bit short-sighted. I would widen my perspective on that and look at other reasons. If you believe in a conspiracy, as I do, I don't believe Oswald acted alone. I don't believe he acted. I believe, in fact, Oswald. This conversation. That's a conversation for another day. But I think that I believe Judith Very Baker, by the way, who wrote the book, who wrote a book about her love affair or her tryst with JFK in New Orleans, or with Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans. I do believe that to be factual. Judith Very Baker and her book. So, having said that, I believe that the conspiracy is much wider and not just limited to Cuba or Cuba. Oh, maybe we'll get the cigars legalized, right? There won't be a trade embargo on the cigars here.
Yeah, that's what's important, right?
All right, yeah, there you go.
All right, well, let's do this.
Now, wait a second. Our listeners will be able to smoke the Cuban cigars instead of just people like Bonnier and Obama. Go ahead.
Do you remember the Seinfeld episode where Kramer actually brought Cubans from Cuba over to roll cigars, and they ended up getting a job rolling crepes, I think they were?
And the whole thing was they weren't Cubans, they were Puerto Ricans. They rolled the grapes too tight. Yeah.
I don't know. That just changed my mind.
Well, for television trivia, there's also a Married with Children episode. I know, folks. Don't send me emails. Married with Children episode where Jefferson Darcy, the neighbor of Al Bundy, supposedly in the CIA, has some interaction with Fidel Castro. Again, it's a mindless sense of humor. I mean, it's a warped sense of humor, but sometimes you just have to go to this absurd, when we're looking at this heavy stuff.
All right, we're going to go to the phones. 661-244-9839 is the number if you want to call in. We're going to go to area code 231 first. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report. What's on your mind on this Wednesday? (231) Dropped off. All right, 231. Call back if you want to come on air. We're going to go to area code 217 next. 217, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagman and Hagman Report.
Hi, guys. Great to talk to you again. I called in once before. As far as the Obamacare goes, my concern is, and I want to refer back a little bit to some of the information that was given to us by W concerning Warren Schiff, who sits in prison.
Adam.
How can we not participate? I mean, if you send in your tax form and you don't sign it, are they going to come and knock your door down?
Here's my thinking. You've got to. Here's what we've got to do. We have to have enough people stand up and say we're not going to play. I use this example all the time.
I have no intentions on it, and I need to digress a little bit. I have some issues currently with the IRS because I'm behind. I haven't filed for a couple of years. My income is low, and as long as Obamacare is in effect, I'm probably not going to take another job. The last time I had a job, they came after my paycheck, and they weren't very nice about it, and then they want to tack on interest. They don't pay me interest when they pay me money at the end of the year. I can't get a job because I'm not paying. That's how I cannot volunteer. I can only be self-employed, and I understand if you don't pay in quarterly or monthly through your payroll deductions that you kind of can refuse to pay and get away with it because they're not going to be, somehow it's not going to hold up.
Yeah. Well, okay. With respect to taxes, let me just say this because and W talked about this. Adam Schiff is his name. He's a really America's political prisoner. He's sentenced to really a life sentence in prison for a trumped up charge, something he did not do. It would do everyone very justice to look into the case of Adam Schiff. But to speak directly to your
I thought it was Warren. I'm
no,
sorry.
No, it's Adam. And
Adam.
His son Peter Schiff. Yeah.
Yes.
His son Peter Schiff is a little bit not on the same page as his father, and I've had conversations.
He probably wants to play ball to some extent so he can participate in the system, and he seems to be doing fairly well. And that is one thing. That's why the elites like where they're at. They're playing the system, but they're sitting at the top, and we're just all we are is lubrication for the gears. And they really don't care about us. Their life's great. They have no consideration. That's why they don't care about killing half of us.
Well,
but I want to beat
exactly
this system without going to jail or getting shot to death. That's all because.
Well, and that's where we're all at. And for this to be effective, caller, all of us are going to have to stop. The only way to win at this game, there's only one way we can win, is to not play. Because we're playing on a rigged board.
I'm not asking you to give out advice that's illegal, but there's so many things you can do to not participate. You can target certain companies or banks or whatever and not utilize their services. You can, but if somehow they have it set up where we actually have to file taxes. However, we don't have to sign our tax return.
By signing it, it's a voluntary assessment, and what the whole tax compliance code by signing that form, you are saying, I agree, this is a voluntary assessment of my tax liability or my liability. Now, we're going to be fighting these wars not in federal court, but in tax court, and they don't play by any constitutional rules. Okay.
Well, then why do I have to go to a court that doesn't allow the Constitution?
Well,
I know.
Therein lies the crux of Adam Schiff, the case of Adam Schiff.
They set these traps up. I mean, they set the law up against you, and even if you uncover the corruptness of their law, show them that their own system is defaulted and fraudulent, you still are held liable. I mean, they set it up so it's a lose-lose for the average person.
Yeah, you know what? I'm trying to just survive right now, and my patience isn't real great with all this. And I mean, I've been listening to you guys for a while now. I used to listen to the conservative talk radio, and and I'm a Christian. I'm not perfect, but I have to have my, repent on a regular basis, you might say. But I'm doing the best I can in that regard, and I'm.
Yeah, we all are, buddy.
Now that I'm awake, it's like I've learned so much from listening to you and all of your guests. I listened to Alex Jones, and it's just really weird, the world that we live in. It's like you look at the magazine cover, and everything looks perfect, and then you look up and you look at the world that we live in, and they paint this pretty picture, but yet, I don't know, it's just like the weirdest, darkest movie you could ever watch. It's like totally opposite.
Exactly.
They literally have us enslaved and tied down. It's like Gulliver's Travels. They have us pinned down at every opportunity through our power, through our phones, through our everything that we're dependent upon. And it's like they also have kept us separated, and one of the reasons it's going to be tough to win this is because nobody's on the same page. I mean, your listeners are, except for the handful of people that write nasty emails to you and your guests. But those people, I mean, probably a good portion of those are the government shills that are paid to do that. Just
exactly. And this is why we go over. Sometimes we have redundant programs,
I listen to them again sometimes because I like to. When I listen to them the second time, quite often it's like reading a book a second time. You just glean so much more. I mean, you guys, I realize that there's a lot of problems and the show doesn't go right sometimes, and maybe you even get a guest on that doesn't quite jive with what a lot of the other guests do, and that's cool, but there's still something to be gleaned from every show, and it's just amazing. You guys have a great thing going, and hopefully through the tough times you'll see the power of your show, because if we could just, I share your program with people. I don't have a bumper sticker, but I try to get people to listen because.
Oh, hey, send an email. You go to HagmannHagmann.com. Fill out the contact
I have. And also, Joe, I do want to thank you. You sent me a copy of Paul McGuire's book. My email must have come in late, and you sent me one anyway. It was the first 10 emails.
Okay.
And my name's Bill, and I want to thank you. I did reply back. You know what? I'm just one person, but right now at this moment I'm part of a group. All of us together listening to your show, we're all connected. You might say in Star Wars, like through the Force. We're all, maybe the Holy Spirit, but we're all connected at a level right now, and if we could just all stomp our foot down at the same time, we might be able to bring down those Jericho walls.
Amen, brother. Thanks for the call. Yes, we need to do that, and you made a very good point.
Night.
God bless you.
You too. God bless you.
And that's the key, folks. We look. The only way to play this game that's rigged against us, it's like you ever been to New York City and you get one of these 3-card monte or the where's the P underneath the shell, You're not going to win. You're not going to win. You're not going to win. So the only way to win is not play. See, the reason these people can still go to corner to corner to corner is because they got suckers. There's still more suckers out there. So if everybody stopped and said, no, we're not going to play, and by not playing, I mean no, you don't see. You want to tax me? My tax dollars. I'm not going to support abortion. I am not going to support this, the homosexual agenda. I'm not going to support this communist takeover of our country. If everyone did that en masse, then we got a fight chance. But how many of your neighbors, until they go to cash that, or they go to use their ATM card and it doesn't work because they've got no money, at what point will everyone join together? You see, we can't even get people to stop flying except for very, very rare occasions and for emergencies. No. Because if everyone stopped flying because of the TSA and looked at the TSA and said, you know what, I'm not going to fly if you grab my crotch or touch my wife or my daughter like that. How dare you? If everyone got together and did that, then the TSA would be no more. One person does it, they go to jail. 10 people do it, they call the press and they get fined. But if everyone did it, those people are cowards. TSA are cowards. DHS cowards. They'll back down. We saw it happen once before. And that was through an initiative by Alex Jones.
All right, let's go to another caller. We're going to go to area code 774. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight, caller? 774? All right. We're going to put you back on hold and come back to you. We're going to go to 678. 678, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, my name's Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Doug, I actually just wanted to start off and tell you thank you for what you're doing. I've followed you for quite a while on the first DHS reports that you did on Canada Free Press, and wanted to let you know that there's a lot of people that understand what you're telling other people about, and I just wanted to tell you thank you.
Wow, well, thank you. And you said you've been following me for quite a while. I've been wondering who that was behind me. Keep looking in my rearview mirror. It's you, huh?
No.
Seriously. No, thank you very much. And I think the DHS, the insider reports, I believe what I was told. I believe that the person who told me what was said saw and believed. I mean, there was. I think what we're seeing is that coming to pass right now. I, in retrospect, looking back, I can't find any faults of that. So, yeah, thank you.
I agree, and I think your show has enormous opportunity to help others understand what's really taking place, and I think we as listeners can benefit not only from learning and understanding what's taking place, but we need to remember what our history really was, so that we can continue to fight. I don't think this is just something that's just going to be instantaneous or overnight. This is something that needs to be passed on, and I think people can learn that from your show.
Well, thank you, and thank you for, I assume, and based on what you said, passing the word along. And what we try to do, we're just normal guys trying to understand what the world's going on here and trying to lay it all out based on, our investigative research and what people tell us and the contacts we develop. We're just trying to just make sense of it as you are and as everyone is, and we need to educate people. boy, that's the only way we're going to get ahead of this is by the numbers, and with God.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
God bless you, my friend. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right.
Y'all have a great evening.
Yeah, you
God
too,
bless.
man.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. I'll tell you, Joe, we've got some great listeners and great callers, and go ahead.
All right, we'll move along to the next caller. We're going to go to area code 573. 573, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi. Thanks, Doug and Joe, for this show. It's wonderful. I listen to it as much as I can. The first thing I wanted to say about the IRS is that you're absolutely right that it is voluntary. My partner did not file taxes from 1985 to when he passed away in 2013, and no one ever, came after him or anything. And then the other thing I think that it's important to remember is that the Karen Hudes pointed the World Bank whistleblower, she pointed this out, that the 60% of our Federal Reserve, the check we send to the Federal Reserve, 60% of that goes to the Vatican. 40% goes to the Vatican, to the Jesuits, and then 60% goes to the City of London, inside of London. So none of it goes to us, to the taxpayers at all. So I think you're right about how we need to all come to this understanding that we should not be paying this. It's an unfair tax all the way around.
And I'm familiar with Karen Hudes, and folks, thank you. I've got numerous requests to have her on the show. I understand that. Well, the IRS, it's not. None of this is constant. This is not constitutional, and we will have a show dedicated to the IRS, perhaps closer to the first quarter of the year, and I was going to tell the other caller that I was talking or had dialogue with Adam Schiff's son, not Peter, and another associate who was close to Adam Schiff. They would be the people to bring on and talk about the mechanics of the IRS, because they're still in the forefront of this battle, and I have got a lot of respect for them, the individuals I'm referring to. So, where this money goes is not where people think it goes. And whether Karen Hudes is absolutely 100% correct, has got the documentation to prove it's one thing. The other aspect is we know it's not going to enrich us. It's not a tax that gives us any type of uplift or any type of improvement. So, but you're absolutely right. So, man.
Yeah.
We'll do this.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is that, based on your professional opinion, do you have any idea of when the currency collapse might happen? Do you think they can wait until September?
I think you're watching it happen. I'm not looking for this big bang or this big boom at the end of this. I know you're watching it take place in increments. It's happening incrementally. When they'll officially declare the U.S. dollar dead, that's another story. When will that happen? I don't know. I just liken it to getting all the people in the Titanic, as many people as possible, and then sending the ship out to sea. They want to fill as many seats as possible before they tank the dollar. They want to get as much of the toil and work and resources and the future of our country and our families before they sink the dollar. So it's kind of like, we'll extend it as long as we can, and then bang, we'll take it down. And speaking of the Titanic, very interesting point about the Titanic. I think if people really research the Titanic and understand what happened there, the sinking of the Titanic did wipe out the opposition to the Federal Reserve back in 1913, And I do believe where there's smoke, there's fire, and I do believe, and if this paints me as a conspiracy kook, then so be it. But I do suspect that the captain of that ship was answering to a higher calling and not a god when he went through that ice field at an incredible speed. So, sorry, I digressed there. But hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, well, I just didn't know because usually they wait, they do things in 7-year cycles. Like 1987 was that, stock market collapse. I researched all this, and then 1994 was the bond crisis. It's always in September, October, and it's always 7-year cycles. And, then this year's supposed to be a Jubilee year, and something like about Shemitahs and stuff, but I didn't know if they could wait that long because of what they're doing now.
Well, I think it's very, very plausible, and I think that Jonathan Cahn and others talking about the Shemitah and the blood moons and all of this, if I don't have a problem with maybe looking toward the fall of 2015 as being a pivotal point, a hinge moment in history where things do collapse or are collapsed deliberately. So what you're getting at, I can see that. I can see where the fall of 2015 would be the crisis moment, or at least when that change does happen. I can get on board with that. I just can't. I don't like the date set because the plans change, the times change, but the objectives don't. The objectives have remained pretty solid. So, but I'd go with that.
Okay. I just think that they'll pull another false flag. I don't know if, the President Obama said about the Ebola bioweapon that this is a test for what he's going to do later. And so that could be something to put us into martial law. And then, I think that everything will happen quickly after that, because they can't blame it directly on the bankers, of course, for everyone who's asleep, Oh,
no. No, they will, and that's a very good point. They're going to be looking toward or pointing their fingers elsewhere. But we know the truth that it's the globalists, the people behind the curtain who are pulling the strings to make this stuff happen. And even to some extent, Obama is nothing more than a useful idiot in this global process. Maybe even useful is too generous of a term, but yes, medical martial law or martial law because of a plague outbreak of some pandemic of some kind could very well be a catalyst, and everyone would say, "Well, we didn't see it coming. I mean, who could have foreseen this?" And it's not us. We didn't take down the dollar. I mean, So the plausible deniability, Nixonian style. Oh yes, caller, you're absolutely right. God bless you for that. You are absolutely right. Good point.
Thank you. Thanks for doing the show too. I just love your shows.
Well, love you. Thank you. God bless. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
God bless you too.
If we don't talk to you, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. God bless you too. Bye.
Bye. I got to switch to decaf, don't I?
No, you're doing just fine. I don't know, area code 509, I don't know if we talked to them, if they weren't there when we came to you guys, but area code 509.
I'll bring them on. We'll talk to them
come
anyway.
To you?
We'll talk to you again if you were on.
Area code 509.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
How are we today?
I don't know. Let me check.
Doing great.
Huh? You pinch yourself, Joe?
No,
I pinched him.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this. I lost what I was thinking about. I got looking at the state ammunition on crud. State ammunition on Midway USA. You can get 250 rounds of 12 gauge double aught butt for $79.99. So. For anybody that wants to go hunting whenever you can't buy food because your dollar's worthless, that'll help you out.
Yes. Hunting.
Yeah,
That's
you know what I mean.
the ticket. Yeah.
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 Okay. It's good. It's good to know. $79.
Yeah. Well, I thought you would like that information. I hope there's a few more out there that would take it up on that. But anyway.
Wait. Tell us again where we get this for hunting.
MidwayUSA.com. That's the big special they have right now.
Well, for those hunters out there, absolutely. Okay, good.
Yeah, for you hunters. And anybody that has chickens they want to protect from coyotes or things like that.
Wolves.
Wolves, yes, wolves.
Wow.
Anything like that.
Well,
but
in
anyway,
all seriousness,
I'm really sorry. I did actually kind of lose my train of thought, but this thing going on with Russia, they are just egging this on, and people had probably better pay attention to the article about what's going on with them people over there trying to spend their money before it's worthless, because that's what's coming here, and, I hope people pay attention.
It's going to be like, caller, you're exactly right. And just to really drive that point home, understand that when your dollar is, when you're sitting there and you're watching in real time your U.S. dollar, well, I guess people would see it as prices going up, I suppose. Hyperinflation, which same thing, just different perspective, depending on which side of the glass you're standing on. But yes, what we're seeing in Russia take place right now as a deliberate act of the United States, or the globalists, I should say, it's coming to this country. So that's why buy what you need rather than throw it, at microwaves and VCRs or whatever, or DVD players. I guess, I don't know, do people still buy VCRs? I don't know. But, yeah. Hey,
well, you got to protect your chickens. Got to protect your chickens. You might want a deer to eat. I mean, hey, it's just that simple.
That's right.
But that's a two-edged sword. It's a two-edged sword. By doing that to Russia, they're destroying the American dollar alongside, which is kind of genius if you think about it, because they want to kill the dollar, but they do not want a strong Russia either.
Do you think, caller, let me ask you this. Do you think the average, well, I won't say the average, but do you think the public understands what's taking place right now?
The general public, I don't think they have a clue.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of an ignorant question for me to even ask. But
well, no, not really, but I mean, hopefully by your asking, it'll make somebody think.
I hope so.
I think people don't have a clue. I like to talk to people. I mean, it's a two-edged deal with me too, with people. I love people, but I hate people. I love them to death, but man, do I hate trying to wake some of these people up. They just, if you look into their eyes, you can see right back to the back of their skull, because there's nothing in between the lens in their eyes and the back of their skull. There's nothing there.
You sound just like my dad.
And it's really sad. I mean, it's sad.
Do you have a dog? That's why I love my dog. Because she listens.
I love my dog.
I'm going to tell you, she listens, and it seems like she understands. Yeah. No, I get that.
Well, I think he's sometimes you can hold a better conversation with your dog than you can with your neighbor, and that's a sad day. sad day.
You're exactly right, my friend. You really are. Oh my, yes. And you're absolutely right when you said that people better watch what's taking place in Russia, because it's coming here, and the time of reckoning is soon. And we all want people to really. I just urge people, just please take a look in your pantry. Take a look at food's a good. Non-perishable food is good, and that's why we recommend places such as American Survival Wholesale, where you can buy food that'll last for 25 years, so you don't have to 30 years, so you don't have to.
Some good sales.
Oh yeah, man!
Good prices on some of that stuff. It's great. I sent some to the Bundy Ranch whenever that was going on down there.
That was okay. But, we've talked, right? You and I have talked, haven't we?
Yes. Oh yeah, we've talked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know.
I just hope people wake up, smell the roses, and reach down in that bush, and you'll find the thorns. They're not that hard to find. They're pretty pointy, and they get their point across. And pretty soon, all the rose petals are going to be gone. It's winter. There's going to be no rose petals. There's going to be no leaves, and going to be left with thorns. And the problem is people in Russia, they're having the opportunity right now to go and buy while their ruble is dropping. When it happens in this country, they're going to flip the light switch off on Friday night, and they may or may not turn it on Monday morning. And when they do, people are going to find out they thought they were broke Friday night. They're going to know they're broke Monday morning.
Very well said. Very astutely, succinctly said. Yes.
That's what I just, my heart goes out. I want to cry. But anyway, guys, I love you. I love you. Each of you do me a big favor. Give your wives a hug and tell them thank you for sharing you with us so we can have you out here.
Well, thanks. I'm not sure my wife will accept my hug at this point. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Well, it's for me.
Mine
will.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell her that. God bless you, my friend.
Right.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye.
And you know what, folks? I did fail to, and pardon me for messing this up. American Survival Wholesale. Remember yesterday? Folks are having a huge sale, and if you go to their products,
the Gratitude Pack.
Gratitude Pack. That's right. Promo code to get the full effect of the sale is giving back. Okay, that's the promo code. So let me work backwards from there because I did not talk about American Survival Wholesale, did I? Can't remember. I don't know. Okay, he's shaking his head no. American Survival Wholesale, look, they're partners. They're helping us in this endeavor. They're Christian-owned, veteran-owned folks. You can't get a better product. You can't get a better. I mean, they're great people. But what's even more amazing is what they have put together. The Gratitude Pack. The Gratitude Pack. Holy moly. What you get in the Gratitude Pack. If you go to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, you can go to HagmannandHagmann.com, click on the link to American Survival Wholesale, or just go directly to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Check out the Gratitude Pack. It's over 40% off the retail value. It gives a whole bunch of food items, long-term storable food. Plus, you get water, 5-year storable water. You need water. I mean, heck, you need water to reconstitute the food. But that's free. Plus, you get 10% off with the promo code Giving Back. Great people, great products. Look up the Gratitude Pack at AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com.
All right, let's go back to the phones. We're going to go to area code 574. 574, we're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yes, this is Nate from Indiana. How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Hey, great. How's Indiana doing tonight?
It's a little chilly, but we're getting through it. We'll be all right.
Well, I just want to tell you, Indiana wants me, and I can't go back there. Sorry. Again, it's, I'm sure, lost on anyone under 50. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, definitely. I understand that. For the body. Definitely a lot of aches with the cold. Guys, there's a lot of things in the headlines, but there's one that really stands out to me the most, and that's the cyber terrorism is what they're calling it now. I perhaps think that maybe this could be something that the correlation of the revaluing of the dollar, I think they could use this as their scheme to escape, to try to implement a new currency. Is there anything that you guys can expand on that, or maybe you think that could possibly work together?
I think I think it's going to be a combination of things, and the cyber attacks will be a big part of that. And we've also seen this already happen in various venues, some financial, some not financial. I mean, we'll look at the Sony hack and how that's playing out. And some say, well, that's a diversion. How about a practice run? But having said that, sure, a cyber attack. I'm more inclined to suspect a cyber attack against our critical infrastructure, which will include the banks. Yeah, I can see that taking place, you're right. We did not really touch on that, but a lot of people are saying that to look at a cyber attack, and also the recreation of the Stuxnet virus, like a virus like the Stuxnet virus. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's like it's flying under the radar a little bit, sort of like whoever did the Sony attack, which FBI said it's either been. They actually really haven't came out with who they think. I thought I heard something about Russia, perhaps maybe North Korea. It's a bunch of speculation. But the thing is with me is, it seems as if our economy is going toward a digital currency. And so somehow this is their way of controlling everything, is through the digitals, like our phones. Yeah. And it seems like it's fallen into the hands of the Antichrist. And that's why I think cyber attacks will lead us, I think, to the major collapse. I really believe that's what, and it makes sense that Russia would use that as their arsenal to attack us, because, I mean, they can't just they could, but I really doubt that they would just want to nuke, I mean, that could be the ultimate end game when it's all said and done. But
think about this.
That would be the approach.
100 years ago, there was no way that the global elites could come and take every penny that every person had saved up and had access to away from them. We'll turn to today, and everybody's records are kept digitally. You might deposit your money, actual physical money, into a bank, but it's still managed and maintained through a computerized system. With the guise of blaming hackers, one push of a button can erase all digital currency data. What better way to, aside from just shutting the lights off and turning everything off, what better way to get a fight started than to take away everybody's money in one country or area and say that this other country is responsible for doing that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
but you're right. I think that this is ushering in the ultimate end game objective here is going to be the mark, because once, I can't, stuttering here. No, but once you don't have to be good to do any of this. It helps. Once something happens like that, to get the mark back in, or to usher in the mark, you'd have to say, well, we have to have a fail-safe so it doesn't happen again. And that, of course, could very well be the mark of the beast, or the precursor for the mark of the beast, so it won't happen again. And everyone carries around their checkbook in their right hand or forehead, or everyone carries around their net worth and everything else in their forehead or right hand. And that's about right. And think of the fraud, the identity fraud. This will also match up the person with the assets. And you're 100% right.
Great. Hey guys, I appreciate it. I listen to you guys every night. You guys have some great information I gather from you guys, and pray for you guys, and pray that we lift up the Lord every night, Jesus Christ, and we glorify Him and let Him be the center of this, because it's ultimately, regardless of what happens, it's already been written. So I just thank God that He has ordained and anointed specific people for this time. And,
God bless you. Thank you so much for your prayers and your kind words, and we really appreciate you in Indiana, and keep Indiana grounded for us. God bless, my friend.
Definitely.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, and Joe, I look, time is short, and we have to understand how short time is. And I say that. But if it was true 2 years ago, it's certainly more true now, isn't it? So please get prepared, folks. We're not trying to scare you. We're trying to help you become prepared. By the way, tomorrow night, Ted Broer. Oh my goodness. We'll put him. We'll make sure he talks slower this time. I love the guy. I love him. He's a great guy. He's got so much knowledge and information. And I was just kidding about making him talk slower. He can do a 3-hour program or a 2-hour session in 10 minutes. I mean, the information that he imports for us, we're so lucky to have him and people like him. And I just want to say that. And, of course, Friday is Steve Quayle and Greg Evenson. Don't forget, Steve's a little bit under the weather. He's not feeling too well, so just keep him in your prayers. He's a brother in Christ, and we just want to see him recover fully. He's going to be on Friday with Greg Evenson, and that's going to be a great show as well. Joe, I just lost my script here.
Well, we are at the end of the program. With that, we will sign off for the evening. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, tuning in, listening to us, spreading the word about the show, for your prayers, your emails, and everything that you do for us. Until tomorrow, when we're back with Ted Breuer, stay safe, God bless, have a great night.